that I talk about in my book, The Dark Parks of Wisdom, that's going to be coming up is that if you're using, right, one of the key features of the book is going to be, I was at a blog and I was going to put a section up called Letters to the Sun. I'll never have, but instead we're going to take this ad and turn it around. It's just they ended up screwing up my head and I ended up in a just a tumultuous situation. I talk about it in my book, Comeback of the Century, before I was able to get these blog posts up. And among the things I was going to talk about was the emergence of so-called AI before we even had public release of like ChatGPT.com and all of that. And the implications of it for things like, if I were dead, would I want my son raised by an AI version of me? And, you know, really exploring concepts of adversity and just completely blowing out of the water the concept of nuclear family and single family home as just a complete scam institution to make sure that we're not the elites that can jump around as young as we want to between skyscrapers with our dad's name on it, like Ivanka and Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. to have sex with Mariah Carey. Here's a guy in Hawaii that was arguing around to everybody in middle school, or rather in elementary school, I want to have sex with Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey was already old. She'd had her breast job by then, definitely, but Mariah Carey was kind of on her waning tail end when I was in middle school, and she'd come out with an album and people had to listen to it. And this was in the era when they were first coming out with the first iPod. Big thing. And then a couple of years went by, got out of middle school and into high school, then they came out with the iPod Nano. In any event, I digress. I was going to say, you know, if you're using that, the father has to realize that if your son is what we call HBJ, heebie-jeebie, and they're going to diagnose all these different things so that they can medicate him to prevent the procreation. And that's why right there, I'm going to make a separate video about this, but never let a psychologist into your child's life. Never let a psychologist analyze your child or make a behavior plan for your child, or never let an IEP or anything like that happen where the person is going to be going to therapy, because immediately they're going to refer the person into psychiatry and then they're going to medicate them 100% of the time. Any psychologist, you know, and any other doctor than a psychiatrist would have to admit when asked that psychiatry is not the best thing or not right, 100% the wrong thing. That psychiatry is 100% the wrong thing for most people, let alone patients. But once you're in front of a psychiatrist, all of that changes. They've got an idea in their head. Their head draws the perfect picture for how would this flatten out everything about you trying to develop and become everything it needs to be. And you know, how can we flatten this or this or this out? And they draw the perfect picture. This is the drug you need. And we can drug anyone, but the smell of a woman's panties. You know, most people's mothers don't pass their smell test, but if they're wanting to smell women's panties, for instance, that's training wheels. And the key point that I wanted to make is, I said, let's make a special deal with the University of Hawaii. But I actually make a separate video about this, that these homeless people at the courtyard in Las Vegas, they have to have UNLV athletes, women that are, you know, female athletes at UNLV, NCAA, come and sit in their faces to wake them up, man. That's why they can't get a job. That's why they can't function. That's why they're, you know, strung out like there's snorting coke, and then or they're shooting up heroin, even if they're not, because they need to get the smell of that. But the key thing is that it becomes not about the smell the stronger you get, but you got to start somewhere. So start with it as a training wheel, like you're dangling, you know, a carrot above a mouse's treadmill or something like that. But as strength develops and as more leads to more, you know, accumulation, accretion, disc, you know, accreting property. It's a concept very unique in terms of littoral and riparian to Hawaii, where they have Kilauea constantly adding land to Hawaii Island. But in any event, as ability develops, it's more about the feel than the smell, because a smell is you know, an attraction to the scent of fecal and wet piss. In there is an indication of a sickly person, but you have to start there. If you really shut that down, they'll get nowhere and be even more of a pervert if you stop the medication. So make sure that they're getting that dangled in front of them. They're chasing and chasing and chasing, and then eventually becomes about the feel, because now when you're strong, more can pump into there, and it's not about that anymore.